Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 29th of October, an always wonderful, special day. But from a market standpoint, at this particular stage, they're just caught in the election cycle now, and it's just a question of who they think is leading and which trade they want to move to. It makes it a bit chaotic because you got the growing uncertainty, the back and forth, everyone saying this, that, and the other. So it just leaves a little bit of indecision. Obviously, it's going to have some clarity in another week or so when the election takes place. But until then, just the back and forth. And it's fairly clean. Everything is rosy. I mean, you don't have a huge short interest. It's getting to rise a bit in the NASDAQ here, but you still have Magenta leading overall. But from a DOC standpoint, you had the little spider crossover, which exposes some weakness. But the overall shakeout still to the positive in that. All kind of relatively benign. When we look at it from a treasury standpoint, you can see the yield continuing to be on the upside of things, despite what the Fed did with their cut in that, which clearly isn't going to have any impact. But it certainly made it easier for, they made the revisions for deficits and everything else. So from that standpoint, it worked, made things a little bit cheaper so they could spend even more prior to the election, and certainly have. Of course, with everyone's projections, they see both Harris and Trump as the same when it comes to spending in that. I think that's a bit convoluted, but that's neither here nor there. If that's the representation of it, then that's what people are trading off of. From an oil standpoint, softness. There's no real trauma going on in the world. The Iranian-Israeli attack thing was modest. Didn't really target any infrastructure stuff. The war in Ukraine is difficult for the Ukrainians as well as the Russians, but it's not resulting in the bombing of infrastructure, oil assets, and so forth. You're not really having any of that trauma develop within it. Eurozone continues to be a disaster, and you're not going to see much of a change, though it does make a huge difference as to who wins on this, because the euro will continue to plummet if Trump comes in with the idea of tariffs versus Harris. Would definitely see just more dollar devaluation, which would be a bonus for the euro. So depends on your point of view there, you could have a significant change in trade. What you're not going to see either way is a change here. Unless you see some kind of deflationary pressure buildup, gold's going to continue to push, and there's nothing stopping it. Too much demand and no way to get around that. The only idea would be significantly lower energy costs that have a ripple effect in the company. But you have to tie that with not spending it, like a drunken sailor. So that doesn't seem to be in the cards. And of course, that's driving Bitcoin. And like the others we've talked about, this was going to be pretty much a standard viewpoint. People are going to look for alternatives to park, and that's the way I kind of view some of these vehicles. A lot of people look at them as, investment thing, but you got cash. You don't want to stick it to a money market thing. You can move it there. Yes, you pay fees, but at the end of the day, you've got a speculative hedge if you're going to be parking some money for a significant length of time. It all depends. From a 50K standpoint, fairly erratic, but still well within the control factor that we see here. Moving to the 100%, coming back. We've had spikes of white, which we just had. So the expectation was at least to move to the 50%. We already did that, and then some, all the way down to the 38. It didn't stay above, so once you're below the 50% and you saw the spike of Magenta coming back, you were going to hold that support. That's exactly what happened. When we look at it even from a further intraday, the 5-minute chart here, it was pretty erratic all the way through. No one could just get a grip on anything at this particular stage. And so that's the confusion right now here in the European. You've seen a strong comeback that's brought things to the positive side from being negative. So that's the long and the short of it. I think we're going to just see more of this kind of action as we build up, unless something exciting happens, which would be an unknown, because right now everything's fairly well known and people are just trading as to what they believe their speculation of how things are going to turn out will be. But as it is now, if nothing changes, the writing's on the wall. You're going to have large structural deficits, and you're just going to continue to devalue the currency, which is going to force the market to have to increase proportional to that devaluation. That's the long and the short of it. Trade well. Excuse me. Have a good one. Anything relevant, I'll put on the Skype chat.